They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Okay, I'm not a fan of Disney's recent fascination of remaking their classic animated movies in live action. For the most part, I consider it lazy. If the remakes were any good, maybe I'd be more okay with it, but for the most part, they suck. Alice in Wonderland was forgettable, Cinderella was total crap, Maleficent had good moments but fell apart pretty quickly, etc., etc., etc. So far, their live action remakes have had only two successes. Pete's Dragon, which was actually debatably probably better than the original, and the live action Jungle Book movie directed by Jon Favreau. If any of the classic Disney films could benefit from a remake, The Jungle Book is certainly one of them. The original animated film is a classic, but it's not one of the company's best. It's also one of their adaptations that veered the farthest from its original source material. The book by Rudyard Kipling was very much about a young boy growing into a man, which was never really captured all that well in Disney's animated adaptation. Plus, the tone of the books and the animated film are very different. There are many things a remake of The Jungle Book could benefit from, and thankfully, this 2016 live-action remake was very successful at capturing the best of both worlds. First off, let's talk about the special effects. With today's technology, the ability to adapt a book with a cast of mostly animal characters is actually very doable. This film looks amazing! It's even more amazing when you factor in that Mowgli is the only real thing on screen. The jungle, the animals, it's all CGI. Very impressive CGI. I'm still blown away by how real the animals moved and looked. If it wasn't for the fact I've seen behind the scenes footage and knew they weren't there, I would have believed they were. CGI has always been a useful tool, but up until today there's always been this fakeness to it. Like, you're just looking at thin air. This film, however, avoided that. The live action and special effects mesh so perfectly that it kinda scares me. I mean, look at this! That's real hands in wet fur that doesn't even exist. There is no way that should look as real as it does. The story is pretty much the same as the animated version. Mowgli is a boy raised by wolves who is forced to leave the jungle after Shere Khan decides he wants him dead. Although, where the original animated film was more of a road trip movie going from colorful side character to colorful side character, this film is a lot more focused on the emotional and internal conflict, mostly that of Mowgli trying to discover his place in the world, and the animal kingdom learning to put aside their prejudice towards his kind and accepting him for who he is, instead of trying to make him something that he's not.
Mowgli? What was the rule about your tricks?
It's not the wolf way.
No more tricks. Chin up, little one. We'll make you a fine wolf yet.
The biggest change from this and the animated film is that the animated film ends with Mowgli going back to the man village, basically because of a pretty young girl hacking into his hormones. The weakness of boners completely on display. But you know what? It's fine. The overall message of the first film was that birds of a feather should flock together. Bagheera even says this quite clearly in the film. And this ending does support that message. But this film has a different message, and in my opinion, a better message. Never be ashamed of who you are. Mowgli leaving at the end would have been completely counterproductive to the message this film was trying to get across. So keeping him in the jungle was the much better choice of an ending. Jon Favreau has also said that if they ever did a sequel, he would like to explore the man village more, so they'll probably explore that ending a little bit more if they ever do a sequel. But till then, I'm glad they stay focused and committed to the message on hand. The casting in this film is also phenomenal. Neil Sethi has an incredibly difficult task as Mowgli. He's the only actor on screen, so he's acting against nothing, and his character's evolution as a child trying to find his place in the world hinges on his performance, and thankfully, he manages to bring a lot to the character. Mowgli at the beginning of the film is also a bit more of a passive hero. Mowgli hates the predicament that he's put in and finds it unfair, but he doesn't argue about it or try to avoid it like the animated version. In fact, he's the one who actually decides to leave, and for completely non-selfish reasons, which makes him a little bit more sympathetic and less of a spoiled little brat. It's not to the end of the film that he decides to no longer run, to stand up and fight. It's Neil's performance that really sells that change, and it comes off completely organic because of him. Major kudos, kid. You've got a great future ahead of you. Special props have got to go out to the actors playing the animal characters, especially Lupita Nyong'o, who proves again that she can bring so much to such a small role. Her wolf character has some of the meatiest scenes when it comes to the drama, and she does a great job at utilizing her voice to its fullest potential. Ben Kingsley conveys the dignity and sophistication of Bagheera perfectly. Bill Murray pretty much is Baloo in real life. Idris Elba gives it his all. Even Scarlett Johansson's Ka is both seductive and soothing, and I love her version of Trust in Me that plays during the credits.
Trust in me, just in me.
This went from 6 to midnight.
Shut your eyes.
All of the actors in this film are fantastic. Not a single bad banana in the bunch. Speaking of bananas, however, I did have two complaints with this film. The first one comes with King Louie. Not because of the performance, it's Christopher Walken, that dude is friggin' awesome, but the fact that they had him sing. They did such a great job making King Louie look threatening, hiding him in the shadows and slowly revealing his size. Making him a Gigantopithecus instead of an orangutan was a very smart move, because it's a lot more factually accurate, and something that big is automatically intimidating. But all that malice almost disappears when he starts randomly singing, in a film that up to now was not a musical. Up until this point, the only song the characters have sung was The Bare Necessities, and that was incorporated into the story. It's used to show the evolution of Mowgli and Baloo's friendship. At first, Mowgli doesn't know what Baloo is singing.
What's that?
That's a song about the good life.
What's a song?
You never heard a song before?
But then, as their relationship progresses, he's learned the words to the song and sings it with him.
I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life.
It serves a point. There is no point to why King Louie randomly burst out into song. His motivations have already been established before he started singing, so why do it? I get that the song I Wanna Be Like You is popular, but it wasn't needed. Plus, you have him singing it during the credits, so its inclusion in the film is even more pointless. The second complaint I have has to do with Shere Khan. Even though Idris Elba is great as Shere Khan and does incredibly well with what he's given, I like the animated version more. In the animated movie, he had much more personality. He was cocky, he was sporting, he was smug. In this film, he's just kind of a bitter, revenge-seeking jerk. He's legitimately terrifying and his motivations are clearly established, but honestly, he's just a bitter jerk. Not much more to it other than that. Also, isn't it kind of convenient that out of all the tigers in the jungle, Shere Khan was the one that killed Mowgli's dad, and that his dad was the guy that caused his physical scarring? Almost like we needed to give Mowgli more of a reason to hate Shere Khan, or make the final battle more personal. But I don't know, the battle was already pretty personal. Plus, the film seems to be tackling the issue of prejudice. And I think it would have been much more stronger if Shere Khan was like the animated version, and didn't like Mowgli simply because he was a man cub, thus making him both the physical and ideological threat. This film is easily one of Disney's best when it comes to their live-action remakes. It's a solid story that flows nicely and never feels like it got too distracted. Its performances are fantastic and its cast incredibly strong. The special effects are mind-blowing, and honestly, if it wasn't for some slight problems with how the villain was written and a totally unneeded musical number, it'd be a practically flawless film. I give The Jungle Book 2016 a rating of 4 out of 5. It's mighty fine.